Let's welcome him to the show, the United States Senator for the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Dave McCormick. Senator, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How's the hot air in D.C.?
There's a lot of hot air in D.C. That's the one thing we got an abundance of. It's like deficit spending. There's plenty of it.
Talk to me about term limits. This is music to my ears. I love this. You're going to make this happen?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Term limits.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if I'm going to make it happen, but I'm going to try to lead the charge. I'm
good.
As you know, during the campaign, I promised I'd term limit myself, and I'm going to term limit myself to 2 terms. And I also said I'd try to lead the charge on legislation. So later this week, I'll introduce legislation for term limits, and I think it's healthy. I think I ran on shaking up Washington. I don't think you can shake up Washington if you stay here for 30 or 40 years. And we got too many people who have done that, and we need to have fresh blood. And the way to do that is to have term limits both in the House and the Senate, and that's what my legislation will propose.
And would it be just 2 terms, or how many terms exactly would you get?
I think for the Senate, it should probably be 2 terms. I don't think you need more than that. Somebody said to me, but that's when you're just starting to get seniority. I said, Jesus, only in Washington do you have to be there for more than 12 years to be able to make a difference. And
right.
On the House side, I think it's probably about the same. The House is a little bit different in the sense that it takes a while in the Senate or the House to ramp up to be able to be effective and get the expertise. So I'd be in favor of probably 5 or 6 terms in the House, which would be 10 to 12 years as well. So you have about the same on both sides. And, that's what our founders imagined. They never imagined there'd be people that would, at the age of 25 or 26, come to Washington and stay there for the next 40 or 50 years. And so these are supposed to be citizens that are contributing in other ways, in other forms of life, and then come to Washington to serve their country. That's what we need to get back to.
Yeah, no question about it. And, this whole idea of you got to be there for 12 years to start ramping up or a certain number of terms, that's because of the seniority system, because there's no term limits. If term limits happen, that goes away. You can start being effective on day number 1 because you don't have to worry about being in there for years and years and years and climbing the ranks.
Exactly. And the thing is that, this is the way in life. It's the way it is in business and anything. If you're in the same thing over and over again, you lose your freshness. You lose the ability to bring in new ideas. And if there's one thing that's for certain is we need new ideas. If I had $1 for every time somebody said, well, that won't work, we can't do it that way, that's what happens, that kind of stale thinking when you have the same people doing the same thing over and over. And we saw in this last campaign, and we see, I think most Americans would agree, that government is not working in the way that it needs to serve the needs of the people in our Commonwealth or the country. The way we're going to do that better is we're going to get fresh ideas, people from the private sector, people from the military, people from various forms of life to come into the government and do great things. And so part of this is creating room for that new idea, those new ideas, that fresh blood. And that's why I think term limits are so critical to the health of our democracy. I really believe it.
Senator Dave McCormick's with us right now. I agree with you 100%. And the question that I would have is, would you be able to run again? Is it like consecutive, or is it just 2 terms, you're done, and go back and do something else with the rest of your life? Could you take a break and run again? How do you see that going as you talk to your colleagues?
Well, I'm still talking to my colleagues. At this point, okay. The legislation I'm proposing would be that would be the max you could serve. You could do 2 terms contiguous, or you could do 1 and come back. And in the House, it would be the same. Maybe there's a chance that someone leaves and comes back. That's a possibility. So I wouldn't rule that out. But it's got to be fairly stark. It's got to be fairly dramatic. We got to change the system. And listen, this isn't popular among some in the political class because they've already been here more than 12 years. So this is not an easy lift. But the reason I wanted to take this on and take it on early is because I think that's what the new guys should do. I think this is what bringing in new blood means, is they're going to propose things that are a little bit controversial and are willing to shake things up a bit.
I agree with you. I'm glad you're doing it. It needs to be done, and it's something that I think a lot of conservatives will support absolutely. And yeah, you're going to get pushback because people have found a way to make they've spent their entire lives there, get rich off of the system, find ways to make the system work for them, and yeah, they don't want to see it change. So it'll be a battle, but you're a fighter, you're a combat vet, so you're not afraid of that in any way, shape, or form.
I'm ready. You know the campaign I just got through. I'm not afraid to have a few arrows coming my way.
You ran against a guy who should have retired a long time ago. So I mean, it's exactly the point, of what you're saying. Let me ask you about the tariffs that are coming into place tomorrow. How are you feeling about this? How are the people that you're talking to feeling about this? Pennsylvania, what can we expect?
I don't. I know the same thing you know about what to expect. I mean, the president's kind of laid out what his goal is. Of sort of leveling the playing field, ensuring we have fair trade. We've been taken advantage of. I support that. I support that idea of reciprocity. And I hope the tariffs will be very targeted in a way where it's clear that the tariffs are targeted on places where it's not fair. So we can possibly get the other side to reduce its tariffs and create much more of an opportunity for U.S. businesses. But there's anxiety. That's the honest truth, Rich. I've talked to a number of CEOs. I think it's slowed down investment a bit because they're waiting to see what the tariffs look like before they make their investment decisions. So I think that anxiety is a bit of a drag on the economy for the moment. And President Trump knows that. He's acknowledged that. But what I continue to say is, listen, there is uncertainty around tariffs. There's no question about it. But we've got a lot of certainty about a lot of things that should give both consumers and business leaders confidence. We have certainty that we're going to have unbelievable deregulation, probably the most deregulation since Ronald Reagan took office in 1981. We're clear we're going to have energy dominance, which is going to lower the cost of energy for businesses and consumers. Huge deal. We're pretty certain we're going to have an extension of the Trump tax cuts, which is to say we're not going to adopt the Democrats' plan, which is to raise taxes on the middle class, which is what would happen if we didn't extend those tax cuts and make them permanent. And we already know since President Trump took office that we got something like $2 trillion of new investment that's been committed by Apple and Taiwan Semiconductor and so forth. So there's a lot of wind at our back in terms of the things that are certain. And then there's some real uncertainty about the tariffs. And, when you're making a big shift to try to bring manufacturing jobs home, to try to create fairness, it's going to be a little bumpy, and I think that's what we'll work our way through in the coming weeks.
You have a bill dealing with fentanyl. It's obviously been a major crisis in Pennsylvania. It's something that, Philadelphia, I mean, it's famous, the streets, the zombies, the tents, the homeless encampments that are going on in the city, places like Kensington. What can we expect on that in terms of cracking down on this and really going after the supply side of it? Because we know the demand side is there, but it's the supply side that we got to crack down on, right?
Yeah, well, a couple things on that. Yeah, this is one of a number of things we need to do. I introduced a bill to create a joint task force. One of the problems with the way we've attacked fentanyl is you've got all the different law enforcements, DEA, the FBI, the Border Patrol, all in their own sort of chimneys. And we need to integrate them into a task force that's going to take this on as the life-threatening national security risk it is. So this legislation, which is co-sponsored, is co-sponsored with Senator Fetterman. So this is a bipartisan bill to make sure that that coordination happens in a task force, appoint task force leaders, make sure there's the right focus, budget, accountability. And this is one of many things we need to do. The president has stopped 95% of the illegal entrants in the country. It's unbelievable. It makes me mad at Biden all over again for letting this horrible thing happen. The president's or Secretary Rubio, which I had encouraged him to do, has designated the cartels as terrorist groups, which allows us to take much more forceful action against them. So there is a lot we're doing on the demand side, and this bill is going to help it. And I just want to say, because we're talking to you, and many of your listeners are from Philadelphia. There was a recent article that was saying McCormick's just talking about the supply side. There's a huge demand side. Yeah, there's a demand side. We got to deal with that too. We've got to make sure we have the right facilities to deal with addiction. We got to deal with the demand side. But the starting point is to stop these cartels from exploiting our people, our neighborhoods, our communities, and killing our kids. And it's a national security crisis that this legislation will help to solve.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, we know where the problem starts. It starts in China, it goes to Mexico, the cartels put it together, and then they bring it across the border, and then they distribute it across the country. And we want to help people who are addicted to this, and we want to do everything we can to help them. Yes, but getting it off our streets is a big start in this. And also, the problem with it is it's not just people seeking fentanyl, which is a problem, but people who are seeking other drugs that wind up being laced with fentanyl, and then wind up dying when they, I mean, just
that's
horrible
it, Rich. Man,
stories.
we met with so many. Dean and I had a couple roundtables with fentanyl families. For my guest for the State of the Union, I brought Jim Ott, sheriff from Blair County, who has been a real fighter on fentanyl, who lost a son to fentanyl. And in most of the cases, these beautiful children died, and they didn't even know they were taking fentanyl. It was laced into marijuana. It was in some over-the-counter drug, and that's the way the drug rings and the cartels want it, because it's highly addictive and it's very cheap. So they lace it into other forms of drugs, and as part of the addiction challenge that I mentioned. So we got to stop it, and we're on the way to doing that.
Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you your opinion on two things. Number one is Doge. I think that the team did a great job the other day with their interview with Bret Baier on Fox News. I personally love this approach. I think we have to do this. We got to save our country here. It has to be done. Has to be done now. There's a lot of violence against Tesla owners. I mean, even in Pennsylvania, we had a story in Doylestown, Newtown, another person in Bucks County. I mean, people are losing their minds over this. But I heard very sober-minded business people talking about their approach to doing this, and it's rational, it's level-headed, and it's what needs to happen here.
Absolutely. I just met with, I won't say who it was, but someone who's one of the biggest, financial markets people in the country, who is, buys a lot of the fixed income. And we talked about what's going on here. And this debt, we have $34 trillion of debt, $1 trillion a year of interest payments, a $2 trillion deficit. We spend about $6 trillion and we take in about $4 trillion. It is unsustainable. It's like making $100,000 a year and spending $150,000 a year. You can't continue to do that and not go bankrupt. And our kids are never going to forgive us. Every president, from Bill Clinton to and Al Gore to Barack Obama to Joe Biden to George Bush, said we're going to rein in this spending. We're going to get control of it. And they didn't. And what's happening with the Doge process, it's giving us a roadmap of how to rein in the bureaucracy and where we're spending money that's completely inconsistent with what most taxpayers would want to do. And the accountability now for implementing these cost reductions is in the cabinet. This isn't Elon Musk out on his own. This is working for the president to identify the opportunities, and then for the cabinet members to make the reductions of cost. We've got to do it. We've got to rein in the bureaucracy. We've got to rein in the spending. And, a couple of weeks ago, Elon Musk came up to the Hill, and we had lunch with him. The Senate, Republican senators did. And I said two things to him, which I'll say to you and your listeners. Number one, we've got to get the spending under control and the bureaucracy under control. But two suggestions. One, when you're moving this fast and making such big, bold moves, and Elon talked about this on the Bret Baier interview you mentioned, you're going to make mistakes. It's inevitable. So you have to have a process where the mistakes get corrected quickly. And that's what the Doge process is trying to do. They're going to get better and better. But, for example, in Pennsylvania, the Department of Agriculture Doge efforts, they cut some experts on bird flu. We're in the middle of a bird flu epidemic, as you and I have discussed. They needed to bring those folks back into the Department of Agriculture so they could deal with the problem, which they did. So you got to fix your mistakes quickly. And the second thing is we've got to reduce the federal workforce. We're going to have to eliminate hundreds of thousands of jobs. We should treat those people with respect and dignity. They were serving the common good. Most of them are patriots that were trying to do the right thing. They're going to make a transition, which they should make. It happens all the time in the private sector. But we should not think of them as anything other than good people trying to do the right thing. It doesn't serve anybody's purposes to mistreat the public workers that are leaving the federal payroll.
And last question for you, the activist judges. Obviously, it's been a big topic, and dealing with this, and they're trying to stop President Trump at every turn. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, listen, I don't think anyone could have watched the last couple of years and not think the courts have become highly politicized. And we see that time and again. We saw that in support of President Biden's agenda. We saw that in attacks that were made in the horrible number of indictments against President Trump. So we've got threaded throughout the judiciary some activist judges, and we're going to have to work our way through it by using the majority to appoint great judges. And I respected what President Trump said, which is he calls out when he thinks the judges are making highly political decisions, but he said he's going to appeal those decisions through the appeal process, which is what he's doing. And if you look at the track record since he's come in office, he's won a lot of cases, he's lost some cases, but he is going to push the judicial process to both define the parameters of executive authority, which we want a strong executive in the presidency, but the courts and the Congress will ultimately determine those parameters, and to push forward on an agenda, which is what the American people promised. So I got a lot of confidence President Trump's going to be in the offense there, and I think his support of the appeal process for reconciling differences with judges is absolutely the right way to go.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.